Hey guys, today I'm going to do the top 10 most coolest and innovative mobile phone designs. And this is my opinion. I already did a list of the top 10 most coolest, innovative mobile computer designs. So I feel it's appropriate to just move on to mobile phones because there has been a lot of really cool mobile phone designs as well that I want to go through. And being a gadget collector myself, I'm also interested in which phone designs are the coolest. So let's go through them. This is just my list. There's going to be a lot of Nokia devices on this list, and there's going to be a lot of devices from the mid 2000s-ish because I think that time was the time where, in my opinion, they had the most experimentation for mobile phone designs. And I think Nokia probably experimented the most. Now, I just watched a video on Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher, his YouTube channel. He creates a lot of really cool videos like this, and he went through a lot of these phones as well. So that kind of inspired me to make this video as well. All right, so we're going to go through this top 10 list. Starting from number 10, we have the Nokia 7600 from 2003. This is one of the phones that I saw in Mr. Mobile's video. It is extremely cool looking because it is not like any other mobile phone. You can just look at it, right? It looks like a leaf. And it has a really unconventional shape. And I think even Nokia knew this at the time. It was unique. Even for the mid 2000s, where you have all kinds of different phone shapes, this was a really unique design. Um, it wasn't a very usable design because people, when you try to use it, it doesn't really work as a phone or a texter or it's just a navigational device. It doesn't really work, and a lot of people didn't like it for usability or ergonomics. But you can't doubt the fact that it's just a really interesting design, and that's why I have it here at number 10. Just really cool, really interesting. Nobody has ever come up with any designs like it since. So just for that creativity, I'm putting here at number 10. So yeah, that was the Nokia 7600, and next up we have the Nokia 7280 from 2004. And again, similar story here, just like the 7600, it's got a really unique shape. I mean, just look at it. It looks like a tube of lipstick, and I don't know how Nokia did this or even thought about this. I mean, you can see the tiny buttons on the side of it for dialing, and the tiny navigational button and the tiny phone like call or hang up button. Like, I don't know what was Nokia thinking about, but it's just really cool that they even thought of something like this. And again, props to Nokia for their experimental like design in the mid aughts, right? Like, this is just, I don't know what other manufacturer could think of something like this, and you really have not seen anything like it before or since. So again, just like with the 7600, the 7280, very, very unique form factor, probably not very easy to use and not very usable, not very ergonomic, but definitely it's going to be on this list just for being a really cool, very interesting design. So yeah, number 9, Nokia 7280. Number 8, I have the Nokia N93, and also very similar is the N90 and N93i as well, that had a similar kind of design to this. It's from 2007, and I actually own this phone. I did a video review on it. This is a very cool device with a very cool design. It's basically it's a flip phone where the display can tilt up and it can also swivel, and you can use it kind of as a camcorder. So that's what's cool about this. It had one of the best cameras at the time because Nokia always used Zeiss lens at the time. So I think if you're talking about the mid-aughts, I think Nokia had the best cameras at the time. And this phone just focused mostly on video recording. You can see the camcorder type of design where you can flip and swivel the display to use as sort of a mini camcorder. You can use it in landscape mode. It's extremely unique, very, very interesting design that no other phone maker has really explored since. I think only the Samsung Alias 2 tried something similar with a swiveling display, but even then that wasn't really focused on being a camcorder. That was mostly because of the e-ink display. So the Alias 2 is a cool phone by itself, but I think the N93 slash N93i is what I'm going to put here on the list. So that's number 8, the N93 from 2007. Very, very cool. All right, and then tied for number 8 with the Nokia N93 is a device that I mentioned just a few moments ago, the Samsung Alias 2 from 2009, which I also think is very cool. Is a similar form factor to the N93, being that it's a clamshell flip phone that also the display also swings so that you can view it in landscape mode, except the use case is very different. So the N93, you flip it and you can swivel the screen because it turns into a camcorder, and then you can use the screen as a viewfinder. But for the Alias 2, the use case is very different. You would flip the screen around because you want to use it in landscape mode, and then the keyboard actually changes to fit that mode. So what's really cool about this device is that it has an E-Ink keyboard, which no other phone that I've seen has something similar to this, because this was a problem that was in the 2000s, right? Is that there are many different applications that needed different keyboards, but we didn't have multi-touch screens yet. So how do we solve that problem? Well, a lot of phone makers decide to have different keyboards or numpads, or they add additional flip functionality or something like that. Samsung solves it by actually incorporating a unique E-Ink keyboard that shifts depending on what application and what context that you're in, right? So if you're in the flip phone mode, then it uses a numpad. If you're in the landscape mode where you swivel the screen around, then it uses a QWERTY keyboard or a numeric keyboard. So that's very cool and interesting. So that's why I have to have the Samsung Alias 2 on here. It's a design that I have not seen really before or since. So very cool of Samsung to incorporate this very interesting take on fitting different keyboards onto the phone, and it's very elegant, and it's done in a way that hasn't really been replicated since. And then number 7, I have the Nokia 3250 from 2005. It's another Nokia phone with a really cool and interesting form factor. So this one twists at the bottom, just twists into different kind of layouts for different functions. So the regular layout is just a numpad, right, for calling people. And then you twist it, and then you can use it as a camera and to shoot, and then you can kind of hold it as like a small handheld camera. And then if you twist it to the other side, you have the music player. So this is a pretty cool design. Again, I think only Nokia did this. They did this with 3250, and then they did this with another model, the Express Music 5700 after it, which also added a microphone as well. But I have not seen any other maker do something like this or make a design like this. Again, this is the mid-aughts, and experimented a lot. And this is, to me, it's just a really cool design for this, right? I mean, just every side has its own function. And before you had touchscreens, right? Like phone makers like Nokia had to think of ways to incorporate all these different functions. Like now, you just launch your camera app, and then your phone just changes into an interface where you can use those type of buttons, right? But back in the day, the interface couldn't just dynamically change like that, right? So you didn't have that kind of a system. You didn't have the multi-touch. You didn't have that kind of operating system. You didn't have smartphones really back then. So this is what phone makers had to come up with, is these kind of really cool, unique solutions to it. So yeah, I like this twisting design. I have this phone as well. Did it in a video review. This is 3250. I also think the Express Music 5700 also very cool as well. Although I think the color palette of the 3250 I like a little bit better. It looks a little bit more professional than the Express Music, but similar design. The twist form factor, really cool. Next up, I have the Nokia E70 at number 6. This is from 2006. And what's cool about this phone is the fact that you can flip over the keyboard to turn it into a QWERTY keyboard. So regularly it acts just like a regular Nokia phone, right? But you can flip the keyboard over, and then it becomes kind of like a text messenger, and you can use it in landscape mode. So again, not seeing really any other maker do something like this. This is a very cool form factor. The E70, and I think there was a few other Nokia phones that use this kind of functionality as well. But this is the one I have, and I actually reviewed it in a video review before. This is a very cool design. So basically, it uses Symbian, right, which is technically a smartphone operating system, not the same type of operating system you would associate with today's smartphones, but it had an operating system kind of similar to Palm OS, I suppose. So you can use it just as like a regular phone, and then if you ever need to do some typing, right, like say you want to text someone or you want to write a Word document using one of the Symbian apps, right? You would switch the phone into this landscape QWERTY keyboard mode by flipping it over, and then like it just transforms. It's like a transformer, right? It's very, very cool. So yeah, again, very unique design, and I also think it's pretty functional as well, right? Because back then, nobody wanted to text with a T9 keyboard, right? The numpad. No one wanted to text with that T9. So having that full size, well, not full size, but a better QWERTY keyboard is for texting and writing is just a lot better. So that's actually a pretty functional design element, if you ask me. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So all right, and tied for the number 6 spot is the Sony Ericsson P990. So this is, I put this at the same spot as the Nokia E70 as a tie. I couldn't really choose between the two because they're both really unique in the fact of how they incorporate both a numpad and a physical keyboard. So this is a really cool thing about phones in the mid-aughts, is that they figured out really unique ways of having both a numpad and a physical keyboard, because they were, you know, pretty important back then. Phones didn't have the multi-touch displays back then, so you had to think of new creative ways to design your phone. The P990 has the numpad on the front of the phone, which is normal, and then the menu buttons as well. But then you peel it back to reveal a QWERTY keyboard underneath, which is cool, right? So it has another keyboard underneath when you pull it back, and then the QWERTY keyboard is very small. As you can see, the keys are very small, but it's just a very, very cool design, because at least you have this secondary kind of physical input once you pull down the front. So again, back then, many people didn't want to text with the T9. It was very, very cumbersome. So obviously having a full QWERTY keyboard was very nice. And a lot of phone makers did this in very cool, interesting ways. So the Nokia E70 did it in a really cool way, and so did the Sony Ericsson P990. Very cool. And next up, number 5, we have the Samsung Exclaim. So this is from 2009. And there were actually a few other phones that had this kind of design as well. Remember the Pantech Matrix and the Helios Ocean were two other devices that that had this kind of design. But basically, it was two sliders in one device. You had the regular slider that most people recognize from the mid-aughts, right, or the late aughts. You had the typical slider where you slide the phone up and you get the numpad. You also have the additional horizontal slider as well that you also see a lot on phones back in those days, right? On a lot of HTCs had those back then, Motorola Droids. You just slide open and then you get that QWERTY keyboard, the full landscape QWERTY keyboard. And the Samsung Exclaim and the Pantech and the Helios, like they had both of them. Like you had two sliders on one device. How cool is that, right? Like as if having just one slider wasn't cool enough, you had two. So I think that's a pretty cool design that, again, not many other phone manufacturers have really explored since. All right, and then tied for number 5 is the Motorola Flip Out from 2010. This is a really cool device as well. Just the form factor, the size and everything. This was one of the very early Android devices, right? This is running Android 2 point something, I believe, 2.1 or 2.2. But yeah, this is way back when physical keyboards were very important on a phone still, right? So they managed to somehow fit a QWERTY keyboard onto a phone this small, right? So first of all, just look at how small it is, right? It's basically like the size of a pocket mirror. And then plus they managed to fit a mini keyboard that just slides out or flips out, hence the name, the Flip Out, right? And also adds a directional pad on the keyboard as well. So yeah, I just put this here because I also think this is a very cool design, very unique. Haven't really seen any other phone try this. I have seen other Android phones with a similar form factor or similar size, like the Neptune Pine would be another one, but I've not seen one with another flip out QWERTY keyboard like this. So just the form factor plus the keyboard just adds another unique touch, another unique layer to it, right? So I got to put the Motorola Flip Out at number 5 at the same spot as the Exclaim, because again, very unique keyboard, very unique design. All right, and then at number 4, I have a tie here. I have two devices that are both, I think, equally as unique. I couldn't really leave one out. The first one at number 4 is T-Mobile Sidekick. I think this entire series is really cool, but I'm going to put the T-Mobile Sidekick 3 from 2006 because I think it's the most representative of the Sidekick series. There's like other ones in the series that kind of they look different, They refine on the concept. They have different mechanisms. But the Sidekick 3, just the prototypical Sidekick, it has that unique swivel display that swivels out, which I think is still really cool to look at. Like, a lot of people look at the Sidekicks and they're still intrigued by it. It's a really interesting form factor. The way that the screen just swivels out like that automatically is really cool still. That you don't, obviously see on any devices these days. Had that full QWERTY keyboard that was really nice to type on, especially for messaging, which was a huge thing back then, because in the mid-aughts, like, everyone was using AIM, ICQ, MSN Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, right? They were using all these different messaging applications at the time, and this was way before smartphone applications came into being. Like, we didn't have WeChat or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, or Line or Kakao Talk. We didn't have any of those things at that time, right? So we just had the computer messengers, right, that you had to use at your desk. Well, this is one of the things that attempted to solve that issue, right? Like, for people who had to be away, who had to be mobile, they couldn't stay at their desk to use MSN or AIM. So what are they going to do to keep up with their friends, right? Well, that's where the T-Mobile Sidekick and some other messaging devices, I believe there was also the Zipit, and there was the Ogo Messenger. There's a few others that kind of did the similar thing, but the Sidekick was the most famous, also known as the Danger Hip Top, by the way. And yeah, it was just a really cool device for the time, and it really shows that it's a really relic of the time, actually, because you can see that there was a time when we didn't have a smartphone operating system that came with all these different messengers that can communicate with other phones, right? This is before everyone had smartphones, so everyone used a computer messenger at the time, and this was the way to communicate with friends using a computer messenger but on a mobile device, and still pretty cool. So yeah, that's the T-Mobile Sidekick, especially Sidekick 3, which I'm showing here. And then also at number 4, I have the Nokia E90 communicator. Now, this is the last in the line of communicator devices. I think all of them are pretty cool. This one came out in 2007. All these devices have the ability to actually open up into a secondary display on the inside, which is really cool, right? So they have that outer display, right? The standard phone display, and then you open it up and there's a larger one, like a landscape mode, and then you have a QWERTY keyboard as well, so you can do your work, right? You can type and text people. I mean, this is using Symbian, right? So it's a pseudo smartphone OS, not really, but it's kind of like similar to Palm OS, right? Kind of like a predecessor of today's smartphone operating systems. So again, very, very cool design. Something that you don't see anymore, obviously, but just the idea, the concept of having a phone that opens up, like a clamshell form factor, like a mini laptop, into another display, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. It's very retro futuristic. So I really wish that some of these design ideas would come back. But yeah, that's the Nokia E90 from the Communicator series. And then number 3, I have also another tie because I want to mention both of these devices. They are kind of similar. First one is the Sony Xperia Play, the Sony Ericsson Xperia Play from 2011. This is sort of a phone, but it's actually meant to be more of a gaming device. So you could use it as a regular Android phone, but you can slide it open to reveal gaming controls. So this phone is like a cross between a PSP Go and an Android phone. It's basically like a PSP Go that can run Android, which is really cool, right? So you can run a lot of mobile games on this, like you can run emulators on this. I actually did a video running emulators on this and compared it with the PSP Go. So yeah, this is basically for people who want to play games on the go, and this came out way before a lot of phones that could really play games, right? This is one of those really early Android devices, and it's really cool that Sony Ericsson or Sony came out with this concept. This is like before the NVIDIA Shield portable. This is before companies really made a lot of these gaming controllers for today's Android phones. So now phones have gotten way more powerful, and then you can attach controllers to them if you want to. You can buy from any third-party company. But it's really cool that Sony came out with this that just slides open. It's just part of the phone, right? And you have those gaming controls there at any time if you want them. So again, very, very cool. I really wish that they could have expanded on this a bit. Like, imagine having like a PS Vita that was also like a phone, like an Android phone, right? So that would have been cool. Anyways, that's the first spot for number 3. And then the second spot at number 3 that's kind of similar is the Nokia N-Gage. And this came out even before, like way before the Xperia Play, actually. this is probably the first phone, I guess, that was really meant to be playing games. And again, Nokia, with their innovation, I definitely think that Nokia did the most experimentation. They had the coolest phone designs, and they were really forward thinking, right? At the time. So, I mean, just think of it like this is 2004, right? They came out with a gaming phone in 2004. And like nowadays, like you see a gaming phone like the Asus ROG phone or the Razer phone, and it's nothing too special. There's like a ton of, there's like a Redmi, right? I think that's another company that makes gaming phones. There's a ton of companies that make gaming phones now. But Nokia did this all the way back in 2004. And they have to be given credit for that, for being kind of forward thinking. And it just didn't work very well at the time, right? Because this phone looked really weird. People called it the taco phone, and it kind of looks like it had an identity crisis. Like it was like a Game Boy Advance that had a numpad like sprouted on it. So yeah, people just wasn't into it at the time. I think it was like ahead of its time. And really, the gaming phones, we wouldn't really look at it again until the smartphone era where we have iOS and Android. So this was just too ahead of its time. People weren't ready for playing games on their phones at the time, right? At the time, you just had these simple Java games, if I remember correctly, right? That's pretty much all you had on mobile phones. It's just these really simple Java games and whatever you downloaded into your operating system. Like I know there was Windows Mobile and Palm OS, so maybe you can download some games, but they were really simple games. And the N-Gage really wanted to play like really higher quality games at the time, but it was just too ahead of its time. So gotta give props to Nokia for that. So yeah, the N-Gage at number 3 tied with the Xperia Play because they're both kind of gaming phones that were ahead of their time. Number 2, I have the Motorola Aura. This is a really cool device, and not many people know it or have seen it because it was a rare device even for the time. Came out in 2008. It was kind of a luxury device, so you had to pay like I think $2,000 at the time to get it. So it was marketed as a luxury device, along the same lines as a Porsche design, BlackBerry, or like a Virtu device would. Except I think this is really cool because of the form factor. So Motorola originally came out with the V70, which I have. And that one has the similar type of cool swivel display, and then the Aura just kind of expanded on that, right? They had the Swiss bearings, and it really looked like a luxury device. Like you can feel that this device seems more like a Swiss watch than it does an actual phone, right? It seems like an heirloom. So I gotta give props to Motorola. Again, I'm not seeing really any other device that looks similar to this, and just imagine like today if they made a phone like this, right? That would be pretty cool. But yeah, this is still a very unique device, I think. And because it's so rare, it still fetches some pretty high prices on eBay. So again, the Motorola Aura with the swiveling display and the circular display, actually the resolution was pretty good for the time as well. It's pretty sharp for the time. And having those Swiss bearings and just the mechanism of opening and closing display. Actually, Mr. Mobile did a video on this one as well. It's almost like it's like one of those fidget spinners, except this one is a luxury device, right? And it costs $2,000. So that's an expensive fidget spinner, but still very, very unique for the time and still now. So yeah, number 2, Motorola Aura. All right, and for the number 1 spot, you might be surprised at this because most of my picks so far have all been from mostly the 2000s. And I have a very, very recent device at number 1. This is the Samsung Galaxy Fold from last year. Yes, the most modern device on this list is also number 1. And I like to also put the Huawei Mate X and the Z Flip, Motorola Razr Fold all in kind of the same category because, well, we've had kind of smartphone stagnation in design for a very long time now, for almost a decade. And finally, we have a device that comes along that has the potential to kind of turn the industry and turn the smartphone design into something a little bit more innovative, right? So like I said, the 2000s had a lot of really cool designs. And then after the iPhone came along and made like the black slab candy bar shape really popular, virtually every other phone has been that kind of shape, right? So we've had pretty much an entire decade of the exact same phone design, right? And you can tell that's been getting kind of boring. So when the Samsung Galaxy Fold was announced and then released, I think a lot of people were excited about it. And why not? I mean, it's basically a new category of foldable computers. It just created this new category, right? It's amazing what this device has heralded. It's a device it's a regular phone that can have multiple displays, and it turns from a phone into a tablet, right? And that's just incredible, right? Because even looking at all these other cool designs, like you have dual screen displays on some mobile devices, right? Like the Sony Tablet P was the really early one, and then we had the ZTE Axon M, we have the LG GAX, we have the upcoming Microsoft Surface Duo. Like these devices are all really cool too, but none of them really have the futuristic technology that foldable displays have, right? So I like to just say this is why I put the Samsung Galaxy Fold number one. It gets me excited. It's basically a new category of device, right? Because it straddles the line between a phone, a tablet, and a laptop, right? So it's kind of all blended together because now you're beginning to see even foldable laptops now with the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold. But like this was the first one of this kind, right? The first foldable phone was the Samsung Galaxy Fold, and just really cool device. The most innovation we've seen in a decade, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's a phone that turns it into a tablet. It can possibly have one or two screens. You can have multiple displays on the front side or the back side, or you can have on all three sides like the Huawei Mate X does. It's just, yeah, I'm pretty excited about these devices. So that's why I put the Samsung Galaxy Fold number one on the most coolest or most innovative mobile phones in my experience. And this is my list, but I'm gonna put Galaxy Fold number one. I just think it's a really cool device that I'm really excited about, that brings in a new era, hopefully a new era of more innovative smartphone designs. So that's it, guys. That's my list. The top 10 coolest, most innovative mobile phone designs. And let me know your comments and feedback in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.